Here's a short video demo on photographing your artwork. In this case, I used my camera phone to take this image. I typically use a scanner for smaller stuff. It just has a more evenly distributed light. But in case, if you don't have a scanner, I take it that everyone probably has a camera phone. So what you want to do is you want to place your image on top of a piece of white paper, and you want to put the image sort of. You don't want direct sunlight. You want it. You want the light to be sort of evenly distributed. So I sort of move away from a window a bit. You can see on this image it's a little darker on the top than it is in the bottom, but we can fix that. You just don't want hot spots or direct light or reflection on your image itself. So I took this with my camera phone, and you want to go over top of the image. Since the images are small, you don't really want to put them on the wall and photograph them. You can just photograph them from above. This was placed on a table near a window, but there was no direct sunlight, so the light's kind of evenly distributed. So what I'm going to do first, and I took this photo and then I just emailed it to myself, and that way I was able to open up Photoshop and work on it in Photoshop. But what I want to do first is I want to go ahead and go to Image, and then go to Adjustments, and then I'm going to go to Levels first. There's a couple ways that you can do this. If you want, you can actually select the white eyedropper, which is the light on the far right hand side here, and you can just hover over and click. That will actually make the light kind of even. So if you can also do this. Let me go back. Click cancel. If you want to fine tune it a little bit more, instead of using totally white in the background, you can just select this triangle and just slide it up until you get the image where you think you like it. I prefer just doing the eyedropper and then drop it over top of the image. But you can do adjustments here on levels. You can also do adjustments to the darks, and also adjustments on the midtones. So you want to kind of play around with that to get the image where you want it. And then click OK. Now, if you notice on this image, it's slightly crooked. And that's fine. I can fix that. You want to try to get the image itself kind of even as you can. But what you can do is you can select the crop tool, and under the crop tool you have perspective crop tool. You want to select that, and you notice your image will already be 7 by 9. I think this image that I'm using might be a little different size, so it doesn't really matter. But you want to make sure that your height or width is selected as 7 by 9. In this case, since we're photographing the work with a cellular phone, we're just going to use the resolution of 150. That should be fine. We won't get a really blurry image, I think, if we're making it this small. So make sure that you have those selected. And my width is 7, my height is 9, and my resolution is 150. So since I have the perspective crop tool chosen, I can go, and I'd like to go outside the edge of the image, and then I just drag this down to the corner. And I usually go outside the edge slightly, and then what I can do is I can grab these corners and I can tidy that edge up. And I want to make sure that I'm cropping into the photograph. I don't want to see any of the white area. So I'm just going to move each corner up and then move this slightly down. And then once I'm happy with the image, you can go in a bit, as long as it doesn't affect the composition. You can go in slightly, and then click enter. Take a few seconds, but you can see my image came out. It readjusted it to 7:9, so I can go to image and image size. Now I can see that my image is 7:9, 150 pixels. You want to double check that to make sure that that is the size. Now you see everything's nice and square. So what I'm going to do next is just do a few minor adjustments. And you can play around with this, brightness, contrast, levels. One thing I do like to use is a preset curves. And you click on default, and it's called linear contrast. It just slightly puts a curve on this image. It bumps up the black a bit, and then heightens the whites just a bit. So you're going to click OK. Once I'm happy with the image, the last thing you want to do, and I always do this with every image that I photograph, I sharpen the image. You go to sharpen, and then smart sharpen. And when I'm printing something, I always go to the mount would be 100%, and the pixels is 1. You can play around with this, but sort of as a rule, I just use one pixel, and then reduce noise 10%, and then click OK. This sharpens up the edges of the image a bit, so it makes it a little bit easier to read, particularly the edges. Once I do that, I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to save as a TIFF file. So you click Save As. And now it's a JPEG, because typically from my cell phone it's probably going to take a JPEG file. So I'm going to change that back to a TIFF file. It's easier for me to work with the TIFF file, and then of course you're going to name it. I would title it again, hands _ and then your name. And I typically save to the desktop. I can find it a little easier, and then click Save. With this, you don't need to adjust anything. Just click OK. And you have your image ready to halftone.